Alright, what's happening, y'all? It's your boy Rico from Street Scores, and there's a lot to talk about today, so we're coming with a Rico report. The main topics, of course, as you see in the title, are going to be us talking about how wide receiver Chris Olave from Ohio State and wide receiver John Metchie from Alabama are both visiting Washington. So we're definitely going to talk about how Chris Olave could possibly be a first-round option for us, 11th overall, or John Metchie can be a second-round option for us, 47th overall, if we want to attack free safety, linebacker, or whatever else in the first round. Again, I highly doubt it's quarterback, but I'm still holding on to that dream. Also, with all of the rumors going around, is it more likely that Terry gets traded or that he gets a new deal? And if there is a deal possible, if that's still a likely option, when will that deal happen? We talk about that. Also, there's some apparent interest in Joe Haden after we missed out on getting Patrick Peterson, so they're trying to add some veteran cornerback depth for sure. I mean, we re-signed Danny Johnson. He was decent in the slot. I loved what I saw from Benjamin St. Juste before the mysterious concussion injury that kept him out for like a half a season. And then William Jackson, the second half of the season, started to basically shut down the whole half of the field. And Kendall Fuller is kind of hit or miss, but he's still really versatile. And when in doubt, you can play him at free safety wherever you need him. He can fill in that pretty solid. So that's really interesting there. Also, we're going to take a look at some of the NFL players that are available, like some that have been released, some that are on the trade block that we want to trade for them. Will it be smart? Would it not? Also, we got to talk about the possibility that DeAndre Carter may be leaving and going elsewhere, and that would hurt. Also, Curtis Samuel looking good, and other random news. So before we dive into all of that, make sure you subscribe to the channel, hit the bell next to the subscription button so you get a notification immediately. And every time I release an informative and opinionated video just like this one, be on the lookout for all of the content. Some more mock drafts coming. I'm gonna work on some film sessions to get out there for everybody. But of course, all of my channel members know that y'all are gonna consistently get these raw and edited film sessions. I'm trying not to go even 3 days without at least putting out one. And then as we get closer to the draft, especially like the week before the draft, you may even get more than one a day, because I'm gonna try to cram in some film sessions. So if you're not a channel member, go become a channel member, because those are exclusive to channel members, raw and edited 20 minutes to an hour film sessions of me just watching random players. Of course, I'm gonna get to my Georgia guys, especially I should start with the guys that I think we're more likely to draft. I feel like George Pickens maybe in the second, Lewis Seen maybe later in the first if we trade back, or are more likely options as far as Georgia players. But of course, I gotta do a Nakobe Dean film session. I'll probably do like a just general film session for our entire defensive line. And then of course, we're gonna do film sessions on players that matter. I still gotta work on Daxton Hill. We're gonna do a Chad Muma one, of course. I've already done Darian Bevers and Jamison Williams. We're gonna take a look at a lot of the receivers. So hey man, if you're not a channel member, go become one, because these film sessions are flying out. Again, I'm gonna work on some film sessions that will be edited, that will be out to the general public, but those will come out nowhere near as often as the raw and edited ones where I'm just recording, throwing on the tape, analyzing, laughing. Because I mean, there are a lot of moments when you're watching tape, especially when you're watching a guy like Jamison Williams juking people out their socks. But yeah man, without further ado, let's go ahead and let's get it. Alright, so first up, reported by Albert Breer, the Commanders are hosting Ohio State Chris Olave on Thursday in Ashburn. And I've already reported that Chris Olave was on the way for a visit in multiple videos, but it's official that he will be coming in Thursday. And then also, John Metchie, the wide receiver from Alabama, will be in Ashburn on Friday to meet with Washington. So you have Chris Olave, who is really close to Terry McLaurin. So I'm pretty sure Terry McLaurin's doing all that he can to persuade Washington to go in the direction of a Chris Olave. I don't love Chris Olave enough to take him at 11, but I also wouldn't hate the pick, because then we'll just have a whole bunch of 6 feet fast route running guys out there on the field, and somebody's always going to be open. Definitely not my ideal pick. He's honestly not even in my top 8 favorite potential picks at 11. But again, I wouldn't be mad at it. I don't think it's a waste of a pick. I think Chris Olave will come here and ball out. There's just at least 8 more guys that I prefer with the 11th overall pick. If we're going to take Chris Olave, I'd prefer to trade back. But who knows? It seems like we're so enamored with him, it's very likely we take him 11th overall. But if for some reason we can't, it looks like John Metchie in the second may be our backup plan. And it's interesting too, because you can honestly compare John Metchie to Chris Olave. He's basically just diet Chris Olave, to be completely honest. Little less speed, speed, but it comes with like kind of the same floor with the route running, the hands and all of that. It's kind of actually interesting. Like if you can't get Chris Olave in the first, you get almost like, you could probably say 80-something% Chris Olave in the second, which isn't a bad deal. But I mean, again, the Chris Olave interest is clearly there. Remember, Ron Rivera doesn't really go to pro days like that. He made sure he went to Ohio State's pro day, and then he also personally talked to the Ohio State's wide receivers coach. He talked to Chris Olave in person, and it's also been reported by a trustworthy source that like not only did Ron Rivera meet with Chris Olave, but it was like a beeline to Chris Olave when they got there. It was like, all right, where's Chris Olave? Hi everybody, yeah, hi head coach, hi everybody else, hi Garrett Wilson, hi CJ Stroud, you know, what's up everybody, but where's Chris Olave at? Let me talk to him. So Ron Rivera clearly has a strong interest in Chris Olave, and again, Terry McLaurin, one of the best players on this team, arguably one of the most irreplaceable players on this team, is probably fighting for us to get Chris Olave. So I'm pretty sure that holds at least some sort of weight. I mean, that's your franchise receiver right there. And it's not like what he says automatically goes, but if Terry McLaurin wants somebody, that definitely makes you at least do a double take at their film. And then Matt Miller, neutral draft analyst, also came out and tweeted just a few days ago that, quote, those Ohio State wide receivers are going to go a lot earlier than people think, both of them, unquote. And he said that that came from a conversation with a high-level NFL scout a few days ago. So expect Chris Olave and Garrett Wilson to not only go in the first round, but to go higher than what people think. Probably more than likely even before Jamison Williams. And again, I prefer Jamison Williams over both of those guys, but I understand with the torn ACL. Also, in very random news, shouts out to George Carmi for tweeting this, but it's crazy. He said that since 2001, Washington has drafted only 2 wide receivers in the first round. Rod Gardner in 2001, Josh Doxson in 2016. In that 20-year span, we have drafted 4 quarterbacks in the first round, 2 safeties, 1 corner, 3 linebackers, 1 tackle, 1 guard, Brandon Sheriff, and 4 defensive linemen. Since 2001, only 2 receivers. And it definitely looks like that 2 will go up to a 3 because, I mean, unless one of these guys gets taken before our pick, I think it's quite likely that we're going Chris Olave or somebody in the first round. I mean, it seems like they love Chris Olave to the point that I don't think they're willing to trade back to get him. I'm not as high on Chris Olave as apparently Ron Rivera and company are, but again, I'm cool with the pick if that's what we choose to do. Also, before we move on to Terry McLaurin, JP Finlay reported that the Commanders will hold a local pro day on April 15th. So that's a good opportunity for college players around the area to show off for coaches and execs. So University of Virginia tight end Jelani Woods should be there amongst other players, which is really interesting because I like Jelani Woods a lot. I love his potential. You could argue he has probably the highest ceiling out of any tight end in this class. So to bring him in for a local pro day to compete against other guys and get a real good close look at him would be nice, because man, hey, getting him in the 3rd round is a steal. We don't have a 3rd round pick, so that's where that trading back comes into. Maybe you trade back from 11 to a later pick and you gain another 2nd round pick, or maybe another 3rd, or we can finesse some situation that includes a bunch of picks where we trade back from 11 to get both of those Chiefs later picks, I think 28th and 29th. I think that would be a great idea. Maybe we would have to throw like a 4th round pick in to help that out. Maybe they throw in a 7, some little complicated where it's like 7 picks flipped thrown around, but the only 1st round picks included would be like our 11th and their 28th and 29th, or whatever they have. They have like 2 back-to-back picks late in the draft, and hey, I'm down to do that. Whatever we got to do to accumulate more draft picks and arguably the deepest draft in NFL history. Moving on to Terry McLaurin, is it more likely that he'll end up getting traded, or is it more likely that we'll end up giving him a deal, or neither? Well, according to Ben Standig, Ron Rivera said that no teams have even called about Terry McLaurin, which is weird because I saw a report that teams have. But Ron Rivera did say that they wouldn't even entertain those calls if they were coming in. And I mean, it's hard to believe that nobody's called about Terry McLaurin. I mean, we called about Pat Mahomes. There's got to be at least somebody out there out of 31 other NFL teams that's as crazy as us to call about Terry McLaurin. Because honestly, calling about Pat Mahomes is crazier than calling us about Terry McLaurin when we're struggling to get him a long-term deal right now. So I find it pretty hard to believe that nobody's calling, but I can believe that they're not entertaining those calls, that they're just immediately hanging up like we're not interested, leave us alone. I can see that, but no team calling is kind of crazy. I don't believe that. I don't care what's going on. And so now that I think it's very unlikely that we trade Terry McLaurin, is it likely that we end up giving him extension? And I think the answer actually is yes. You kind of got to be patient. First of all, JP Finlay tweeted, I think Washington gets a deal done with Terry McLaurin. It won't come till late July, and that will make fans nervous, but eventually it gets done, probably around $21 million per year. We're going to have to clear up some cap space to get that done. Remember, Landon Collins is still technically on the books. He'll be off the books as a post-June 1st cut, so we'll gain additional cap space then, and that would be enough to be able to pay Terry McLaurin that $21 million a year if that's what he's willing to take. Hopefully he is. And then it was also reported by somebody that both sides are basically waiting until after the draft to even start talking. Like Terry McLaurin's side, or Rivera, and the Washington side, they're both just basically waiting until after the draft to see what's going on, where we're at, and then they'll start contract negotiations. But as of right now, I'm not even sure if they're exactly talking. So again, I'm confident that a deal will get done at some point. I don't think we're going to put Terry McLaurin in the franchise tag loop like we did with Kirk Cousins and Brandon Scherff. I think we're just going to go ahead and get that done immediately. I think it's one of the biggest priorities for this team. I think that's why we're not signing bigger guys, like why we weren't willing to pay Bobby Wagner, what was it, like 11 or 10 million per year that he's getting. I would have been willing to give him 13, and we definitely could have had the cap space to do that if we wanted to, but apparently they just didn't want to. And I think one of the main reasons they didn't want to is so that they can go ahead and give Terry McLaurin his money. They may look into paying Deron Payne as well. But I mean, you still have guys like Tyrann Mathieu out there. I'm not even sure. Is AJ Johnson still a free agent? I got to check into that, man. I mean, there's just so many good players out there still available in free agency at needs that we have, like middle linebacker, safety, and all of that. And the fact that we're not like heavily pursuing those guys shows me that they're trying to save money for something. I can only assume it's Terry McLaurin, because the draft is only going to eat up like $6 million worth of cap space. So we'll be fine. Moving on. Apparently, it's been reported that the Commanders are interested in veteran corner Joe Haden. I think is fairly underrated, and I think honestly, if you get him for very cheap as a veteran corner, I think that's a home run hit in free agency. Of course, I'm not really hoping we get Joe Haden and sign him to big time money. Of course, he's not up there in the caliber of like a Tyrann Mathieu or Bobby Wagner, not even like a equivalent to AJ Johnson, the linebacker from Denver. But if you can get Joe Haden for really cheap, I say you go do it. But this has also been reported after the Commanders tried to negotiate with Vikings corner Patrick Peterson, who ended up going back to the Vikings. So the fact that we looked into Patrick Peterson, now we're interested in Joe Haden, shows that we're clearly looking for more veteran corners rather than some guys in the draft. I mean, of course, every draft you should draft receivers, corners, tight ends, offensive linemen, like just every draft, especially like later, as we start to get to like the 5th through the 7th rounds, and especially bringing in undrafted free agents. So we're going to bring in some corners either way, whether it be late in the draft, undrafted free agents, whatever. But it's interesting to see that they also want to bring in a veteran corner. I don't know if that's just a lack of trust in William Jackson and Kendall Fuller to stay healthy, or if they're planning on letting one of them walk in free agency, most notably Kendall Fuller at some point. I don't know. And then just the update per Field Yates, Washington currently sits with $10.4 million worth of cap space. But again, once Landon Collins is officially off the books, that's going to increase. That's going to be like an additional $12 million added to our cap space, which will take us over $20 million. So just to give y'all a heads up on that. Now moving on to NFL players available. It's been reported by the Seahawks that they're open to trading DK Metcalf if somebody comes with the right deal. They're either going to extend them, but right now them and the Titans are struggling to extend their receivers. The Titans with AJ Brown, DK Metcalf with the Seahawks, and kind of us with Terry McLaurin right now. So I mean, that's out there, but I just don't see how that makes sense. Unless you're trading Curtis Samuel away when you trade for DK Metcalf, maybe that kind of makes sense, but you're already struggling to pay Terry. And then the reason the Seahawks may even trade DK Metcalf away is because they can't pay him, and so we wouldn't be able to pay him either, so that just doesn't make sense. You'd be getting him on a rental because he probably just end up leaving in free agency anyway. But again, I mean, I could kind of only slightly understand it if Curtis Samuel's part of that deal so that you save some cap space that way, but I still just don't see how that makes any sense at all. But hey, it was one of them things thrown out there, so I wanted to make sure I reported it and talked about it. Also, the Jets released tight end Ryan Griffin, and that would be a nice solid tight end vet option, because right now, man, we are struggling at tight end. Right now, our projected, even available tight ends for week 1 of the regular season are John Bates and Sammis Reyes. And Sammis Reyes, we're not even sure if he's playable yet as far as how raw he is. Again, Logan Thomas doesn't look like he'll be ready by week 1 to at least be fully healthy. May not even be worth forcing them out there, especially with us having the league's easiest schedule. And then on top of that, we lost Ricky Seals-Jones to the Giants. And we literally just don't have tight ends on roster. It's literally just John Bates and Sammis Reyes. So we need somebody, and it's going to be hard to get a really good tight end in this class because Jelani Woods has a high ceiling, but you could argue as a relatively low floor, kind of a boomer bust type of guy that you may be able to get in the third. But I mean, for us, we don't have a third round pick, so are we willing to reach on him in a second? And then, I mean, we're interested in Jalen Wademeyer, but who knows how that situation goes, if he'll even be ready to play by week 1. It's just not a really good tight end class overall. And either way, if you snag any of those guys, are any of them going to be ready to play week 1? Or are they going to be maybe not as raw as Sammis Reyes still is, but, you know, raw enough to where, like, we're not even ready to throw him out there? I mean, the only tight end that you could argue may even be ready by week 1 is Trey McBride. He definitely looks like the best tight end in this class, especially if we're talking about floor mixed with ceiling as well. The only guy that may even be ready to play week 1 is Trey McBride. But even then, how late do you think he'll slide? I mean, somebody may take him in the first. Are we willing to take him in the first, especially if you don't trade back in the 20s at 11? He may not even be there when we get to our 47th pick. So I don't know what we're going to do at tight end. Again, all of these draft tight ends, the only one that may even be ready week 1 is Trey McBride. And so we need to go get a veteran guy either way. Even if you plan on taking a tight end in the first 3 rounds somewhere, somehow, you still may want to go and get a veteran guy like a Ryan Griffin. So I definitely think we should look into that right now. And then moving on to DeAndre Carter, sad news is former Washington wide receiver and returner DeAndre Carter visited with the Bears yesterday, and he's visiting with the Chargers today. So I'm scared. I hope he's just doing his due diligence and taking a tour around, getting flown out just to see what's going on. But I really hope he comes back to us, because that's going to be a big hole in our special teams. Let alone, I mean, he was technically our wide receiver 2 last year. He wasn't a great one, but I mean, the fact that he was our wide receiver 2 shows you that, I mean, he's at least a pretty decent depth piece at receiver. So you're losing some wide receiver depth along with your best returner that we've had since I can remember. I mean, I just really don't want to lose DeAndre Carter if we don't have to. Please bring him back. Ron Rivera said something to the extent of, like, they've talked to him and they've clearly shown him that they want him back, but maybe he's just looking around to see what other teams are offering, if they're offering more and things like that as far as money goes. And remember, DeAndre Carter's agent is Terry McLaurin's agent as well, so they're talking to the same guy when they're talking about extending Terry McLaurin and bringing back DeAndre Carter. It's crazy. Also, Curtis Samuel's looking good. He's out there running like full speed with the little thing wrapped around his waist to hold him back as well. So he looks like he's the healthiest I've seen him since we've had him. Well, at least since April or May, when he got the first injury that started the domino effect of a failure of a first season with us as a free agent. So I mean, I'm excited. Don't know how much to believe in it. I'm pretty sure Ron Rivera and company just looked at it like, yeah, sure, we're still taking Chris Olave in the first. I don't care. It'd be nice to have you back. And hey, when in doubt, we got Chris Olave, Terry McLaurin, Curtis Samuel, De'Ami Brown, and Cam Sims all out there just running around. But I highly doubt Curtis Samuel looking this good, looking better than I expected, is gonna stop them from taking whoever they wanted to take in the first place. So we'll see how that goes. And then in last news, very random news, just to let y'all know, the Commanders training camp may not return to Richmond. Ron Rivera said that the 1 week trip is not financially equitable. So that was a really nice thing that he did last year. But yeah, I think everything's just going to end up being in Ashburn. The whole thing. I don't think they're going to go to Richmond for that 1 week like they did. So just to give y'all a heads up for those of y'all that preferred it in Richmond, if you're deep in Virginia, just to give you a heads up, you may need to plan on taking a trip to Ashburn this time around. But yeah, man, that's the end of this video. Please get in the comment section. Let me know how you feel about everything discussed in this video. If you like this video, if you learned anything, please leave a like. Also, I appreciate all of my supporters. Shouts out to all of my sponsors, especially my Pro Bowl sponsors whose name you see scrolling on the screen right now. And again, if you're not a sponsor, go become one so you can get all of these film sessions that I'm spamming out there. And I'll catch y'all later. I'm out.